tell me about what you think of the role as influencers in these direct to consumer companies. What are people missing? Why do you like working with influencers? And what have you found? I mean, I think one of the really surprising things that you and I have spoken about is that shaky videos perform really well. Things
Yeah.
that look like people are making them sort of on a whim, things that look like people are making them at home, that have that raw and authentic feel generally when they're on platforms that are very social in nature, those tend to perform much better than really produced videos. But I think that that then leads into another one of your principles, though, that you want your creative to match the platform, and you need to know the culture of a platform like you need to know the culture of a city.
Yeah.
And just as if you're in New York and you're walking Fifth Avenue and it's 6:30 in the afternoon, you better be walking fast. And if you're at a funeral and you're walking at that speed, that's just weird. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, right? You're not being respectful. And so there's a culture in different places, and that then leads to our walking speed, just as there's a culture on different social media platforms, and that leads into the kind of creative that you use.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there. There's influencers and there's culture and nativity to a platform. So on the influencer side, so it's important that we also reiterate that this is focused for direct to consumer brands because this always makes people really angry. But from a content perspective, you're absolutely right. The shakier, the better is a phrase that is commonly said throughout the world of direct to consumer. Um, and we'll get into that in a second. But on the influencer side, there's a couple different roles influencers play. There's the role of, I'm ninja and I'm aligning myself with a streaming platform, and that's a huge deal because that's a top 1% influencer who has massive influence, and they can move crowds like no other, right? And so there's those types of influencers, but the ones that I was heavily focused on were the ones that had anywhere between 50,000 followers to maybe 10 million followers. So not the top 1%, but still had a good amount of a following, right? And so one thing that I used to always see was, coming to New York and being at Hint, I would I had a few friends who at the time were, influencers, and I would say like, hey, why don't we, how about we get together and all basically book out the rooftop at 60 LES Hotel, and I got the corporate card, and let's get some influencers together. I'll get some Hint bottles on the table. We'll get everybody drinking Hint and posting on their stories, and let's just like start to create this little like culture of Hintfluencers in New York. And it was never intentional, but like, it just started happening. And at the same time, what I saw brands doing was simply, you sign up to an influencer marketing platform, you pay them the month or the annual fee, and then you get on the platform and you find 12 influencers who have a certain number of followers in a certain region, and you check next to their pictures and you hit send brief of a brief of like, hey, we want you to post on your Instagram a photo of you drinking the water, and this is the caption, and let us know when it's posted. And it's just not, every time people see it, like if you look at the comments of actual influencers who do that, all the comments from the fans are just, yeah, you get that bag, go get that check from the brands. Like, yeah, we see you killing it with these brand deals, right? Like fans are hyped that that their influencers they follow are getting a check from a brand. They're not going to go to the store and be like, oh, I saw David Perel on his Instagram with a bottle of Hint in his hand, so I'm going to go and get, a bottle of Hint. And it's because it's just not natural. And so what we started doing was the complete opposite. We just said, like, forget the whole, like, pay for influencers. Let's just, like, bring them together and have a good time. And we'll host a couple dinners. We'll get drinks together. We'll get to know each other on a personal basis, and let's look at them not as influencers, but actually content creators. So how can we leverage some of the things that the reason they're influencers or they have a following in the first place is because they're really good at one thing that they do, or really good at leveraging a platform, right? So for Sarah had built a following of probably 500,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube because she was really good at talking to a camera when she was doing her daily vlogging. She built an audience because she was good at speaking to a camera, and people felt that she was speaking to them, and that's why they subscribe and keep watching. And so I said, okay, well, we don't necessarily need Sarah to like plug in her YouTube video or give us a shout out on Instagram, but what if we take, Sarah's skills around creating these really engaging vlogs and almost create a vlog style video for Hint that just talks about why she likes to drink Hint and like why she was a self-proclaimed like Dr. Pepper addict and LaCroix addict, and all of a sudden when Hint came along, Hint was like all she drank. And so I was just like, why don't we just take her skill set of vlogging and storytelling and combine it with the why of like why she likes Hint, and we'll pay her for that video, and let's see if we can run that as an ad, and maybe other people will identify with her story, and from you could say a communication or like messaging transportation standpoint, she's good at communicating it through the screen, so we'll use her as a content creator to tell that story. And anyways, all that to say, I think influencers are really good at creating content, which is why they can make a living off of it. So we just started looking at influencers as content creators and leveraging them in that way where they could, there was no like brief that they would get. We almost had a never-ending library of content because we had all these creators who we had developed a close relationship with that would just want to create content for us, and it was really dope content. We didn't have to go and organize photo shoots and video shoots in studios and pay for hand models and stylists and all that kind of stuff. It would just come to us as content that was genuinely like people wanted to create it.
So earlier you were talking about how to identify influencers that you think are going to resonate. So what are you actually looking for in terms of what influencers are going to move product? Because just because somebody has 10 million followers doesn't mean that they're going to convert really well. So you're looking at comments, you're looking at how many likes to retweet ratio they have. Are you looking at quantitative metrics like that? Or are you having more of a qualitative feel of like, you know what, I like this person, I'd buy from them?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. So from if we scour for influencers, we look at a couple things. One is this person somebody who has good, consistent engagement, which is just a byproduct of being a good creator? And secondly, is this somebody who's like good at speaking to a camera? There's a lot of people who have a ton of followers because they might be bloggers or fashion bloggers. They might be they might make really cool like slow motion videos, whatever it is, but they're not necessarily good at looking into a camera and you feel like they're speaking to you. So that's the biggest thing. That's why a lot of times we worked with vloggers because they were really good at speaking into the camera and articulating things really well. The second main thing, which was the biggest thing, was do they genuinely love the product? Because if they don't, then they can't actually have a genuine answer to why they use that product or why they like that product. It's just going to be manufactured based on a brief that they get in a Google Doc, and those just never work. So even with Sarah, the way I got in touch with Sarah was a mutual friend of ours basically gave me her address, and I just shipped her 9 cases of Hint or 100 bottles of Hint, And all of a sudden, it ends up, she tries it, she loves it. It ends up on her Twitter, her Instagram, and it has a whole minute-long segment in her YouTube video of how Hint just out of nowhere shipped her this water that she loves. And after we saw that, we were like, okay, this is a girl we got to work with, because she clearly loves the brand. And she wasn't expecting that, like, oh, if I talk about it, they're going to want to pay me or pay to work with me. It was just that she genuinely loved the product, and that's why we worked with her. And so that's the biggest thing, is do the creators that you work with genuinely have an affinity for the product that they're about to create content for, because that also sparks the best creative ideas.